Hey there, it's Shauna. I hope you're doing great. Welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for February 26th. So this week is all about expressive moments. And I'm calling it that because this week you may have many different moments to express yourself and to get an idea or something creative especially, or just like anything expressive off of your chest. It's a very opening kind of energy, expansive kind of energy this week. And so I'm excited to share this astrology with you, and then I have 3 tips for you to have an amazing week. So first things first, earlier in the week we have Mercury square Mars. And so Mercury is related to our thought process. It's related to how it is that you intellectualize things. It's how you communicate also. And then Mars is related to your drive, your initiation, passion. Mars symbolizes how and when you draw boundaries, when you say no, and when you engage with conflict in all the different ways, healthy conflict as well. And so this signature, the Mercury-Mars, is really about saying something that needs to be said. There's a certain amount of momentum and passion behind the words at this point in time. And so what's interesting is that Mercury is in the sign of Pisces still. And so Mercury in the sign of Pisces, Pisces is about intuition and feeling into things and imagination and dreams. And it's very high on inspiration, high on thinking about ideas and visualizing things, but very low on the linear thinking. Mercury in Pisces, it's kind of like we're hanging out more in the right side of the brain, more in the imaginative and spatial side of the brain versus the analytical and logical. And so I would encourage you to use that this week. Even though it's more of like thinking and communicating things in a more abstract way, there's a lot of momentum here with Mars. So if there is something that needs to be said or that you're excited about, like that support is there for you. And if you feel like you're not ready to say the thing, or it feels like it's too much, maybe, I encourage you to work with that. And maybe that means like you don't actually say the thing to another person, but you work it out within yourself. I think that this is enhanced by the fact that we're also having a full moon this week too. So when we're moving towards the full moon, we're moving towards higher emotions and everything kind of like apexing. It's like things start to feel more and more urgent and more intense. And it depends on what's happening in your life. Depending on how this feels, it might feel like exciting. And again, like the word momentum keeps coming to mind. But if you have a lot going on, it might feel kind of overwhelming. I don't know. And I'll have some tips for you on how to handle that. But the full moon this week is in the sign of Virgo. It's exact on Thursday. So Thursday, March 1st, which is cool, full moon at the beginning of the month. So it's exact at 4:51 p.m. Pacific time at 11 degrees of Virgo. And so this full moon is really cool because it's in the sign of Virgo. Virgo is all about improvement. Virgo is about being helpful, and really Virgo is about like taking things apart and understanding the nature of the thing by understanding all of the different pieces and then putting it back together so that it can become more whole and become more complete. And what this looks like at a more practical level is doing things in a routine, doing things one step at a time so that you can become better at the end, so that you can become better over time. Virgo is very much about ritual and process as well. And so all of these things may be coming up. What is your process? What are your routines? The other thing about Virgo is that there is a high expectation. And so I would notice how you're feeling, especially leading up to Thursday. The energy of Virgo is that it's often very clear when Virgo energy is around where to yourself, like where you fall short or where other people fall short or where it is that you want to go. And so I would encourage you to be very gentle with yourself. If you are working on something, it might feel like you want to get there like now, you want to get there yesterday. And I think that's good. It's good to have that sense of, again, the momentum is the word that keeps coming. And so I would encourage you to focus on that momentum and to not be too hard on yourself if it feels like you're not exactly where you want to be at this point in time. And the other part of this full moon is that it's also very close in contact with the planet Neptune, and Neptune is about things being very like inspiring, and there's a certain element of like fantasy as well, but it can also be a little bit confusing. So basically, all of that to say, if you're feeling really intense during the full moon and you have a lot of things that you're working on, this is a good time to continue with your processes. Continue to set yourself up for success by going through the steps one step at a time, and don't get discouraged if it feels like things are not moving as quickly as you like. There will be time for that. And then the last thing that's happening this week is we have Mercury, again, Mercury, thought process, communication, will be conjunct Venus. And so Venus is about relationships, love, beauty, sex, attraction. It's how we connect with each other. It's the socializing symbol of the astrology. And so I'm like, oh, this is cool. Over the weekend, there's like, it feels like earlier in the week, there's something that maybe you're wrestling through. There's a certain amount of tension in the air, and there's something that needs to be said. There's something that needs to be brought. And then over the weekend, we can connect and talk about it. And I think this is a really sweet aspect, Mercury conjunct Venus. It's good for connection and for being around people, places, situations that you value and that share your values. So that being said, I have 3 tips for you that I want to share. So tip number 1 is to, especially earlier in the week, take calculated risks. And so I say that because we have that Mercury-Mars, and Mars really wants us to take risks. Mars is an encouragement to take action. And caveat is I want you to take calculated risks, because there's a lot of, we're in Pisces season still. We have Neptune making aspects to this full moon, and so things may not feel entirely clear. Things may not be entirely clear. And so I want you to be very diligent about when you take a risk, make sure that it's calculated, make sure that your ducks are in a row, so to speak. So that's tip number 1, to take calculated risks. And then tip number 2 is to aim for progress over perfection. And this is so important when we have a full moon in the sign of Virgo, because Virgo will typically encourage us to aim for perfection, which is a lie. Like, there is no such thing as perfection in the human life. Some of you may argue with me, I don't know, but what I really want you to think about this week is aiming for progress. And that's such a huge thing for Virgo. Virgo is about progress, and there's something here too where it's like that momentum thing. There's something that's being built. And so I want you to think about that, progress over perfection. And then tip number 3 is to celebrate your blessings. And I say that because the full moon is a time of celebration, naturally. And I think this week, because there is we're working towards the full moon of Virgo, and we have that Mercury-Mars, there can be a tendency to get kind of there could be a tendency to get frustrated with lack of progress, kind of like I was saying earlier. And so I think that just celebrating where you're at right now, that can be very soothing when we have Virgo energy around. And so that's tip number 3, to count your blessings. And then I have a quote that I want to share with you. This is from Brené Brown's Daring Greatly. See if you can see it. So I love Brené Brown. She is the bomb. And she has a lot to say on things around vulnerability, perfectionism, all of that good stuff. And so I wanted to share a little excerpt with you that I think is a good meditation for this week. I'm going to take a sip of coffee first. Okay. Daring Greatly. Appreciating the beauty of cracks. Just as our experiences of foreboding joy can be located on a continuum, I found that most of us fall somewhere on a perfectionism continuum. In other words, when it comes to hiding our flaws, managing perception, and wanting to win over folks, we're all hustling a little. For some folks, perfectionism may only emerge when they're feeling particularly vulnerable. For others, perfectionism is compulsive, chronic, and debilitating. It looks and feels like addiction. Regardless of where we are on this continuum, if we want freedom from perfection, we have to make the long journey from what will people think to I am enough. That journey begins with shame resilience, self-compassion, and owning our stories. To claim the truths about who we are, where we come from, and what we believe. In the very imperfect nature of our lives, we have to be willing to give ourselves a break and appreciate the beauty of our cracks or imperfection, to be kinder and gentler with ourselves and each other, to talk to ourselves the same way we talk to someone we care about. And so I know that was a long quote, but I thought it was really perfect for this week, and just really good medicine, emotional medicine for this week. So last but not least, you liked the card thing, me drawing a card yesterday, or not yesterday, last week. So I want to do that again. So we'll see. So I have, this is the Animal Spirit deck, the Wild Unknown. And I really like it because it's beautiful. So I haven't picked a card in advance. I'm just doing this right now with you. So we'll see what card, and this will just be like a little bit of guidance to seal everything off for the week. Okay, one more time. Okay. Oh, sweet. So it's the dragonfly. And so this little symbol, the arrow up, that's the modality. It's air. And so this is really cool. So the dragonfly is a really cool animal symbol because dragonflies, they can fly in all different directions. Like they can fly backwards, diagonally, sideways, forwards, all of the ways, and they can see 360, which is crazy, bananas, right? Like if I can't even think about if I could do that, if I could see all the way around my head. So anyways, so the dragonfly, I'm telling you that because the dragonfly is about being very flexible and movable and able to change directions very fluidly. It's about that flexibility of like changing directions. There's also a really cool story about, I think it's called the water bug and the dragonfly. You can Google it, but it's about this process of how dragonflies actually start in the water. They start as tadpole kind of things, submerged in the water, and then as they grow and mature, they eventually emerge and they go up to the surface, and then they don't go back. They become beautiful dragonflies. So really sweet little symbolism there. So that's all for today. That is your weekly horoscope. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please share it with a friend. I love to get all of these messages out to as many people as possible. And then also a few announcements. So you may have, if you follow me on Instagram, you may have heard that the Feminine Principle podcast is ending. It's our last episode this week. And so I'll have a link down below for you to listen to that. I'm feeling lots of feelings about it, and so I don't want to talk about it too much right here, but I'm sure at some point I'll make a video about it and explain a little bit more. But it is ending, and I want to just thank everyone for listening and for all of the support. It's been really sweet. And something new and exciting too, at the same time, ending, beginning, very appropriate. It's happening all fast, I know. So I will be hosting the very first episode of Neo Feminine TV. That'll be this Thursday, March 1st at 9 a.m. So what is that? So Neo Feminine TV is this new experiment that I'm doing. It is a live broadcast where I'll talk about the astrology of the upcoming weekend and just talk about certain things that are happening based on the astrology, certain things that are important. And then I'll be able to take live questions as well. So that'll be a weekly Neo Feminine TV. It'll be every Thursday at 9 a.m. And I'm really excited about it and a little bit nervous, but I'm really excited to do it live and to connect with you. And yeah, so I'll have info below for you to RSVP on there and to get more information about that. And that's all for now. I'm wishing you an amazing week, and I will talk to you soon. Namaste.